Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sell More Book Show, episode 564. I'm Bryan Cohen from Best Page Forward, joined by superstar of authoring and teaching and kickstarting, Kel Carpenter. Thanks for coming back, Kel. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, we were talking about a couple times at the end of the last episode, almost like Kickstarter horror stories with people spending a little bit too much or having a lot of fear. Like, I'm interested, like, what are some don'ts for new Kickstarter people, because they're using, they see your campaigns, they see like big ones like Willow Winters, they see these big like multi-author ones where it's like huge, and they're like, I gotta do all the same levels that they did. I'm just gonna copy what they did. I'm gonna buy millions of dollars of swag, etc. What other don'ts are there for authors looking at Kickstarter campaigns?
Don't overdo the tiers, for one. I think that limiting the number of tiers is really important. The more things that you have and the more add-ons you have, the more variations the boxes are, which, again, if you are doing your own fulfillment, which many authors are, can make it more difficult, and it increases the chances of things not ending up in the box, which means you're paying shipping twice because you're going to pay to ship it to them once they get it and they say, I didn't get my XYZ. The tiers one is a big one because I see a lot of authors that go, I want to do this tier because I saw it on this one, and I want to do this tier because I saw it on this one, and before you know it, you've got over 10 tiers. I would say you don't need to go over 5 for the most part.
Okay.
Maybe 6, maybe 4, but 5 is probably a pretty good sweet spot. As we've talked about, I don't think that swag is where it's at. I'm very vocal about this because I see so many authors wasting money on it in Kickstarter and outside of it. I just don't think if it's not going to make you money, there's no point in doing it. Especially, I mean, we're in this business to make money. If you weren't in the business to make money, you wouldn't put a price on your books. Ergo, you want to make money, so it doesn't make sense to do something that's not going to do that. And that's where I believe it is with swag. Really, with Kickstarter, you just need to focus on the books.
Right.
How can you elevate the books? And it does pay to look around and see what other people are doing, but that doesn't mean you have to do everything other people are doing.
Right.
There are a couple things that I would say are probably must-haves for special edition books, but there's only a couple. Beyond that, it's whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. This is good advice. People need to hear it. So thank you for sharing. I do appreciate it. And we'll get into more. You can learn more, of course, at Kel's courses at ruleyourauthorempire.com. So definitely check that out. I've got a book launch webinar tomorrow, based on the future of this recording episode. Tomorrow, on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Go check it out. We'd love to have you talking about how to launch your book more effectively. And you may hear a few surprises in there that you won't expect. So we had a question a couple of weeks back, which was, how do you make writing books stable as a career and create longevity? I'll ask you your thoughts on this in a sec, Cal. We did not have a lot of answers. S.A. Schneider said, wait, you can have a long-term stable career as an author? Where's that information? Winky face. I know you jest, S.A., but every single episode on the show, we are trying our darndest. Cal, obviously this is a question that's a whole can of worms, but what are your thoughts? How do you make this stable and create longevity?
So the first thing I'll say with that is everyone tells you to write a good book. And this is true. This is the basis of it, because without a good book, you can't have readers that stick around. If your book is poor, readers won't continue to read you. So, I mean, that part's common sense. The part that a lot of people don't consider after that is, how do you sell that book in as many ways possible?
Yeah.
That is where I built longevity with my career. I went to translations, I went to audiobooks, I went to Kickstarter with special editions. I find new ways all the time. How can I sell the same thing over and over again? Because for me, writing is the hard part. For some people, that's easy, but for me, marketing is the easy part. So writing is the hard part, which means I can't write all the time. It's exhausting if I do. So how do I sell what I've written as many times as possible? That I think is how you make longevity in a career, especially if you're not looking for flash in the pan success of your video went viral and suddenly you've sold a bunch and you've made $100,000. That's awesome. Can you do it again and again and again? Most people can't.
Right.
So longevity looks like steady growth.
Yeah. I love that. And it's a lot of things you mentioned, like translations and special editions. Obviously, you got to build up some money, so I don't recommend you do that on your first book after you made $100. Things happen in a certain order.
Yes.
In this business, and you gotta put them in that order. But eventually, those kind of things. I talk to authors all the time who are like, I'm stuck at high 5 figures, I'm stuck at low 6 figures. And it's like, well, that's the point at which translations, audiobooks, special editions, these are the kind of things that hiring more of your social media out so that you're not doing it yourself all the time.
Yes.
That's when those kind of things fit into a career.
Delegating is so important when you get to 6 figures or are going to 6 figures. The more you can delegate out and just focus on the tasks that only you can do, the better off you'll be. For me, I learned that I run ads better than anyone I've hired. Nice. Therefore, I need to run my own ads. I need to write my own books. And that's pretty much it. Everything else I can find a way to delegate out. It's just a matter of finding someone that knows what they're doing. And so that's what I've been doing a lot for the last year, is finding those people that I can delegate and have them do the things that I don't have to do to keep my empire running.
I love that. I love your use of empire. I've been talking with one coaching student about she's like doing stuff. She's having trouble delegating, and I'm like, well, how is this helping the empire? And it's awesome. So good branding, Cal.
Thank you.
I like it. You're welcome. All right, let's get into, oh, and a reminder, y'all, question of the week. Let's get more than one response next week. I love y'all, but let's make sure to respond at Sell More Book Show After Party Facebook group or sellmorebookshow.com. Top story of the week, near and dear to my heart. This game is mental, too. Reese and Oprah aren't the only stars who can make a book a #1 bestseller. Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown unintentionally showed just how much influence NFL, National Football League, stars have when a television camera caught him reading a book on the sideline at a recent game. Quote, the internet promptly spread the word, said Sportico's Jacob Feldman, and fans went scurrying online to get their hands on a copy, end quote. The book in question, Inner Excellence, Train Your Mind for Extraordinary Performance in the Best Possible Life, had already hit the #1 position on Amazon by the next morning. It was in the 500,000s prior to this. The book had jumped overnight from less than a copy a day to over 2,300 per day, according to the Kindlepreneur Sales Rank calculator. Getting an NFL player to be caught reading your book might be a cliched marketing message by the time you hear this, but taking Brown's advice on this book seems timeless. Quote, my teammates call it the recipe, he said. It's got a lot of points in there. It's a lot of mental game, a lot of mental parts about it. And you know, for me, this game is mental, end quote. Brown said a teammate had recommended the book, written by Chicago Cubs minor leaguer Jim Murphy last year. He now carries it with him on the sidelines for every game. Hey, the author game. It's mental too, says Roland in his editorial comment. I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I was watching this game when the cameras caught him. The commentators then called it out. They highlighted it. They found like the front cover. They circled it. So it got play on TV. Then, in the interviews after the game, people were like, were you reading a book because you were annoyed you weren't getting the ball enough? And he's like, no, I just like to read. Why are you guys always trying to stir stuff up? And then it spread on social media, like the pictures of it. And then by that evening, I checked it because I was like, I watched the game. I'm interested. By that evening, it had hit number one, and it was number one days later still. So this book sold a ton of copies. Cal, I just find this super interesting. I believe this book is self-published. I wasn't able to verify this, but it's amazing. I picked up a copy of the book, and it's like, I kind of like the book. It's not just I got it because, hey, a football player got it. Like, what were your thoughts on seeing this is a truly viral TV book moment?
I think it's an awesome opportunity. It's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity in a way, because those types of things don't just happen to people every day.
Right.
I've seen it happen a time or two before, not in this exact scenario with a football star, but
Right.
a book was picked up by someone very famous and it hit media, and suddenly that book skyrocketed. So I think it's an amazing opportunity for those that it happens to.
Right. Right. I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to get one of these once in a lifetime things, but I mean, to go into my hot potatoes of wisdom questions already here, is there anything authors can do to increase their chances of luck? Because this was lucky, because he'd apparently been reading it at other games, and this was the only time it got caught during the playoffs when more people are watching. Is there anything authors can do to increase their chances of luck that someone will spread the word about their book for them? Not necessarily a superstar, but you know.
The better the book you write, the more likely it is that people will talk about it. I know that that is the most basic advice, but it is still so true. The other side of that can be that the more times that you try social media, and I'm not a big social media person, so I don't follow my own advice on this one because I don't have the bandwidth for it, but the more times you do follow social media and you throw out videos, you're likely to strike lightning in a bottle at some point. So there is a certain mindset with that I've seen with authors that continue to do it, and then they do have that, and it hits, 100,000 views, and they launch into the top 1,000 in the store, they launch to the top 100, they launch to number one.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think if you're wanting actionable advice, I would say focus on your craft and write a good book. And the more social media you do, the more likely you are to hit it. I don't think things like ads are going to get you the lightning in a bottle. They're really good for consistency and maintaining, but they're not going to be that flash in the pan success.
Right. Right. Yeah, I actually absolutely agree with that. Ads can help you maintain. They aren't going to magically change your life. Cal, we've got another hot potato wisdom question from you to me.
Do you have a book that you carry around, keep in hand, or regularly turn to for inspiration or support?
So I like to keep books that either inspire me or that I think are cool on my bookshelf behind me. I've got Becca Syme's book. I've got Positive Intelligence, which I think might be slightly out of view. I've got the 10X Rule. I've got all these books that I've either consulted with over time. But I'm not like a dog-eared pages kind of person. I do this with audio, though. And there are some audiobooks that if I'm in a rut, I will come back to. One of them is 50 Success Classics, which is literally just like 10-minute summaries of all these books about success. And like I'll come back to that because it's very bite-sized. I don't have to like listen through the whole book to find that part that I liked. I just know, oh, well, this chapter on Ernest Shackleton's book or something can inspire me. And so I don't have one, but like for audio, I definitely will turn to that book pretty regularly. Do you have one? And to throw the question back at you, Kel, do you have a book that you keep?
Best-selling Author Next Door is probably the best one I recommend for authors in particular.
Okay.
I took so much away from Skye Warren's book.
Yep, I thought it was Skye's book. I was like, I think that's Skye's book. Yeah.
It is my most annotated book to date.
Nice.
It has so many taps in it. She gives a lot of really great advice, and her way of presenting it is it's impactful, and it actually resonates really well. I found her process fascinating, but she doesn't say like, this is the way you do it.
Yeah.
She presents it as how it has worked for her, and you're able to take away what works for you and leave what doesn't. And she talks about, implementing things in steps. Don't And it's very similar when it comes to RAM. If you go to RAM or another
Mm-hmm.
conference, if you come away and you try to implement 100 things, you're probably going to fail at all of them. If you come away
Right.
and try to implement 3 things, you have much better odds of success. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is one that's really stuck with me. Chillpreneur is another one that I've really enjoyed that I've been reading.
Oh, nice. I
I've
hadn't heard of
gotten
that
some
one.
good advice from, I don't know. I've started reading nonfiction in the last year. I never really read it before that, and I find I enjoy it. It just has to be the right voice. And I do audiobooks a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. If the vibe is off,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
it doesn't make it. But that's cool. Yeah, I find sometimes just getting a different perspective that isn't from the author world for business is very helpful. So,
Yes. I agree.
awesome. Lightning round needs another lightning sound. So let's bring it out and not scare the dogs and cats. Cal, give it a shot.
Boom, boom, pow.
Ooh, I like that a lot. I like the boom, boom, pow. Okay, no, very nice. Cal, how many books do you need for Facebook ads to be cost effective?
The question isn't how many books do you need, it's how good is the book that you're doing. The better the book
Tell me
is, the
more.
less you have to spend money on to actually get it to do well with Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
I had a book
Mm-hmm.
that I spent $20 a day on for 6 months, and it was in the top 500 of the store for all 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I had another book that I spent $100 a day on, and I was lucky when it stayed in the top 5,000 in the store.
Mm-hmm.
Moral of the story, the better the book is and the more it resonates with your audience, the more likely it is to be effective regardless of what you're spending. So I don't think,
Mm-hmm.
and the book that did really well that I'm thinking of was actually a standalone. So I don't even think that you need to have a certain number of books in a series to do well with Facebook ads.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's the same with Amazon ads too. It's like we've had standalone authors absolutely crush it, get into the top 500 of the store the exact same way because they wrote a great book and it's marketed very well with the cover and the blurb, and other of their books never make it into the top 20,000.
Yep. That
So,
is so true.
great answer. You've got a question for
Yes.
me.
How do you decide when you have the budget for running Facebook ads?
So I want to point out here that you don't need to spend like a 6-figure, 7-figure author right out the gate. You can spend $5 a day, and that's okay to start with. You may have to spend a little bit extra for the testing period of these things, but you don't have to spend through the roof. But ads, as we mentioned, are not a magic formula. If you have a book that's already doing really well organically and really well on social media, and you're looking to give it a boost, ads can be helpful. If you have a book that's in the doldrums of the millions in the store, running Facebook ads to it will increase it, but you have to ask yourself, will it be profitable? And so on the flip side, I see authors who are terrified to run ads who are making so much profit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just scared of it because, well, they think, well, I need a 700% return on investment. And I'm like, lol. Because, y'all, Walmart doesn't get 700% return on investment. $1 billion company. It gets like 5, and it's making so much money. And it's because, look, you don't necessarily need a very, very high return on investment. We're lucky. Yay, us. Authoring has a low overhead compared to bigger brick and mortar kind of businesses. That doesn't mean we can never spend money. And so I think you decide you have a budget when it makes sense for the books that you have. But on the flip side, y'all, if you're crushing it and then you're like, well, I'm stuck. And it's like, well, what are you doing for marketing? Trying to go viral. Okay. Maybe run some ads, see if that helps things.
couldn't have said it better myself on that one.
Thank you. We're on the
There's
same
a
page.
lot of truth to it. Doesn't really like your budget, it grows with time. And that's actually
Yes.
one of the beautiful things about being an author is you can start with that $5 a day budget, whereas a brick and mortar store can't afford to start that low of a spend
Yeah.
with what they're doing. And you can grow over time. And I mean, that's exactly what I did. I started small and I grew over time, and now I spend hundreds of dollars a day.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for a lot of seven-figure authors at this point, 6 and 7 figures. Most of us started, I mean, everyone starts at the beginning at some point. So, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We're like this, Cal. We're just like on the wavelength. I love it. Let's pivot to special editions. We haven't gotten to talk too much about that, which is something that brings you joy. So, what are some of the benefits of selling special editions direct off your own website or even through something like Kickstarter?
So the obvious one is money. There is a lot of money to be made. Special editions, when done right, you can see much higher profit margins than you would for ebooks, especially. For instance, using numbers, I spend $9 max usually on a special edition from a printer. That book makes a minimum of $75. So the ROI there is pretty steep. It's good.
Yeah.
I think money is just the most obvious one. I find that, so the thing with special editions is lots of people believe they're for your mega readers, and they're not. You have a small percentage of mega readers that buy them, but actually a very large number of people that buy my special editions are brand new readers to me. I would say at least 50%, honestly. The number of times I've had someone say, I bought this because it had a raccoon on it, or I bought it because it looked pretty. They're collectibles. So you think about it in terms of what a collector wants. Collectors of books are like me. That's another thing, is that a lot of the times the things that I really excel in are because I understand the base dynamics of it.
Yeah.
And in this case, I enjoy special editions, which made it really easy for me to understand the concepts that when people buy them, they don't always buy them to read them. Honestly, more times than not, they're just buying them to put them on their shelves.
Right.
And so with special editions, you gain new readership, you gain people that are just collecting your book, and you gain a lot of money. I mean, there's not really a lot of drawbacks with it.
Right. Right. I love that. Thank you. I honestly didn't even know that it was something that newer readers could buy. So I learned something new. Thank
So
you.
I tend to sell my special editions with optional add-ons like buy this book plus the ebooks, buy this book plus the audiobooks. And a lot of brand new readers will choose that option because they don't actually want to read the special edition, but they'll read the ebooks of it, and then they have the special edition for their shelf. So that's been a really easy way to upsell and to get more money out of it. And they're happy because they're paying a little bit less for the ebooks and still getting what they want.
Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting process, honestly, because it's not what you think it will be when you first start in terms of like, what do mega readers want? Like, that is the biggest thing that I hear from people, that they're like, oh, I polled my readers. And I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they say. They don't know what they want. When Henry Ford brought out the car, he didn't say, what do you want? Because if you ask people, they would have said a faster horse. He showed them what they wanted. And that's your job as the author.
Right.
And the producer of everything, because you're your publisher too. You have to show them what they want.
Love that. Love that. You got a question for me here.
How can nonfiction authors get into the special editions game?
So this is interesting. This is speculative because I honestly do not know a lot of indies who put out special editions. I have put out for nonfiction. I have put out hardcover editions of some of my books. Some people took me up on it. Some people didn't. I've never done the sprayed edges for one of my nonfiction books. Some people might take me up on that if I had done it. It wasn't really a big thing when I did my Kickstarters. But there are some Kickstarters on in the nonfiction realm, in the journal realm, that have done very, very well. I even have a couple on my shelf that do have the pretty edges. And I never even thought about that being a reason why I got them. And so the fact that I can't even think about why I got that thing that is on my shelf probably leads to some thought on, hey, well, maybe someone will just get the fancy version. And especially I'd never bought books from this particular person, but I'd listened to their podcast. I was on their email list, and then I got their thing. Now, I've always been a big believer, and I know you teach nonfiction stuff too, Kel, which is, yes, you get them in the door to maybe get a book, but you want to sell courses or coaching or services because that's the typical nonfiction funnel. But you don't have to be the typical nonfiction funnel person. Absolutely, you could have special editions of your book and make that the way that people find out about your particular genre, your particular thing that you're teaching. I have started putting out journals, and this is something new for me, the Best Version of Your Life journal. I'm already working on the sequel, The Best Version of Your Heart, and I have 13 planned. I am absolutely going to make fancy versions of this because people freaking love journals and they love fancy journals. And so maybe with straight up nonfiction, it might not always make sense, but certainly in this low, highbrow, low content kind of stuff, there is nothing wrong with getting a little bit fancy sometimes.
It's interesting that you point that out. When it comes to nonfiction, I almost always buy the paperback or the hardback. Mm-hmm. For some reason, when it comes to nonfiction, I like to have the physical edition. Yep. I don't know that I would splurge for a special edition, but on the flip side, when it comes to journals and planners, I always buy something pretty.
Yep.
And so that's a really good point, because when I saw a journal for the first time, or a notebook or whatever that had sprayed edges, I lost my mind. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it's not something I'd actually considered before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, maybe in a couple years, when I would have sold millions of fancy-edged journals, we can say that, hey, this moment birthed something. So, awesome. Last question for you. This is kind of more of a catch-all kind of question. Kel, what's something you thought was important to spend big money on as a new author that turned out to be something maybe false, maybe you shouldn't have broken the bank on?
I don't know how to phrase this one.
I love this.
So, promotions, but specifically promotions that are run with other authors in the business that are charging money typically. A lot of them can be scammers, and it is a waste of money to spend large amounts of money on promotions that are like, here's going to be 50 people and we're going to do a giveaway that's huge, and all of these people are going to join all of your lists, newsletter lists. Mm-hmm. And then you wonder why you get reported. Yeah, so that is probably one of the big ones. I was roped into it in the very beginning, and I got my way out of it very quickly once I realized what was going on. Because at first you're like, oh wow, promotion stuff with other authors, this seems cool, and you don't realize the more money you're spending as you keep doing it, because you start with the $25 promotion and then the $50 promotion, and then you're like, oh, $300 will yield me more results. $1,000, before you know it, like, you're spending $10,000 with someone that's going to blow your money, and you're not going to see very much in return. So that is one of the big things I think for authors, is be wary of how you're spending your money, particularly in cases when you're working with people to get results. Do your research, talk to other authors, talk to authors that say, because one of the people I'm thinking of in particular used my name for a long time. And if you were to ask me, I would have told you straight up never to use this person. But they use my name to say that they help me grow. This is the case for a lot of people. If you just ask when they say, hey, so-and-so used me, you'll probably get an honest answer. And there's times when even the person says, they kind of helped, but it wasn't really that great. I've gotten a lot of those too from people that I've gone to when I followed up and I was like, hey, how did this promotion work? How did this work out? When it comes to like book tours, that's a really big one that a lot of places, the book tour is useless.
Yep.
It'll get you pretty pictures at most. At worst, it's literally just a waste of your money. A lot of them don't review. And the ones that you see that do really well are usually very big ticket book tours. And it's not guaranteed. You still need to have a book that's good, that's getting traction on its own to even interest readers. If you don't have that, it's not going to go anywhere. A lot of this is, I don't want to say common sense, but kind of like you need to put your thinking cap on and think very analytically and kind of have a little bit of reproach when looking at how you're spending your money as an author. And you ask yourself, like, is this going to, in my case, I ask myself, is this going to make me a unicorn? And that's how I make my decisions. And if the answer is no, I don't do it. Just flat out. There's plenty of like shared worlds. I stopped doing shared worlds because I said, you know what? No one ever became a unicorn from doing a shared world or an anthology. Now, people might think that's a little bad, but there's a lot to be said to it. I actually heard from Shane Silvers would ask, will this make me money? I heard this years ago from someone who told me like this was his approach, and it really stuck with me. And so I think when looking at like what you're spending your money on, especially when you're spending big money, you need to do your research and ask yourself, will this actually get me where I want to be? Which in 9 out of 10 cases for us is, will this make me money?
Right. Love Shane Silvers, by the way. He's awesome. And his books are awesome. So that's great. I like that. Will this make me a unicorn?
Yeah.
That's
I have a
amazing.
slight obsession with that. So
hey, no, it's great. No. I feel like we've gotten some good phrases. Like Heather said, my success is inevitable as her affirmation.
I love Heather. She's fantastic.
I know. You've got, will this make me a unicorn? We're going to gather more and more of these quotes together over time, and I can't wait to compile all of them. But we need a question of the week. Can I propose something?
Okay.
So based on your amazing question, what is something you can do this year that will make you an author unicorn?
I like that.
Okay, I'm going to write it down before I forget it. What is something you can do this year that will make you an author unicorn? Inspired by Kel at ruleyourauthorempire.com. So thank you for the inspiration, Kel. I appreciate
Glad to do it.
Yeah. And you can answer the question of the week, folks, at Sell More Book Show After Party Facebook group or sellmorebookshow.com. Go find Kel's stuff. I mean, I've learned stuff today. You can go learn stuff from her courses. I really appreciate you being here today, Kel, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really love these kinds of things, honestly, because I like talking shop and talking about stuff in the author business. But there's not a lot of opportunities, really, because it's such an isolated job. So this has been fun.
Yay, good. Awesome. Well, go check out Kel's stuff. We're going to have another wonderful guest co-host next week, so stay tuned. So for Kel, I'm Bryan. Have a great week of book selling, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week for episode 565. Bye.